All right, so Phylum Echinodermata. Now I know when you first look at this word, you might not pronounce it correctly. So I went ahead and broke it down phonetically for you here. Echinodermata. Echinodermata. It's Greek. This is like chimera. It's a K sound instead of a CH, okay? So it's not Echinodermata, okay? It's Echinodermata. What it means in Greek, it means spiny skin, okay? And let's break this word right here. Echino is spiny, derm is skin. So you have dermis, epidermis, right? That's your skin. If you go to a dermatologist, they study the skin. It's a doctor for skin, right? Maybe you got some skin cancer or some bad acne or something like that. Dermatologist is who you're going to see. Now there's 4 classes that we're going to talk about. So we have kingdom, Animalia, phylum, Echinodermata. Class, the first one we give you is Asteroidea. Okay. The next one is Echinoidea. Holothuriidea. And Crinoidea. Okay, so there's 4 classes. These are all Greek words or Greek roots. Astro or astero, aster means star in Greek. Echino, what did we just say that means in Greek? Spiny or spiked, right? I'll do spiny, but spiked is, same type of deal. Holothuriidea means water polyp. Okay, I write water like this. I used to teach chemistry, so that's what I do. Okay, water polyp. Remember, we talked about with cnidarians, the polyps were that shape, right? They've got the tentacles on the top. The rest of the body is, attached to something. So water polyp, it's kind of a, well, we'll see what they are here in a second. And crinoidea means lily shaped. Okay. All right, so what are these? These are your starfish, which are not technically fish. So you could call them sea stars instead, and that's absolutely fine. Also your brittle stars. All right, so if you've already watched that video, you know what we're talking about, but I'll go ahead and draw them. You guys know what starfish look like, and there's different shapes, right? Brittle stars look about the same, but they've got those weird, long, wacky, inflatable tube guy arms, right? Echinoidea are your sea urchins and your sand dollars. You could sometimes find these washed up on beaches. They usually look kind of like that. They're kind of flat, sometimes they have like lines in them. Sea urchins are the fellows that are they've got spikes on them. Sometimes they have thicker ones. Sometimes they have really sharp little needle looking ones. Okay, you've probably seen those before in different reef tanks or whatever. Holothuriidea are your sea cucumbers, and they're no relation to like plant cucumbers, but they look like them. They are kind of like little wandering cucumbers under the sea, okay? And these guys are sea lilies. Again, not like the plant. They look like the plant, but they're not the plant. They have what looks like a stalk. It's more like a tube. And then they kind of, they look very plant-like. Okay, they look kind of like maybe like a feather duster, or like a little weird underwater palm tree, something like that. Okay, echinoderms are 100% marine. You will not find a freshwater one. Okay, what is marine? Did we talk about marine? Okay, marine means saltwater. 100% saltwater. You will not find these in fresh water. You won't find them in lakes. You won't find them in streams. Okay? Now, can I get rid of this? You guys got everything that you need off of at least this, like this half? Okay. And if not, of course, we're recording it, so you can look at it again later if you need to. Get rid of this all the way up to here. All right. They can reproduce sexually or asexually. Okay. Sexual is good in that they get new types of, they get new combinations of DNA, right? They get new combinations of genes. It helps to make the animal stronger. All right, or better adapted to the environment, typically. But they don't need a mate. Some of them are just dandy without one. If I am a starfish, okay, and I get this leg right here cut off, and it's over here now, what happens? What happens to the original, like the one with the 4 points on it? You guys ever seen this? They grow back. They regenerate very, very well. So it'll have this weird little, and it'll grow a little bit bigger, a little bit bigger. Eventually, it'll look just like it did before. But what happens to the arm that got cut off? It does the same thing. It will grow a little baby body. And then it will just keep getting bigger. And eventually we will have 2 starfish that they're clones of each other. They're not, I mean, this would be like you know, losing an arm and now you've grown 2 of you. Now you've got a twin, okay? Genetically, they're exact same. Why? They came off the same animal, okay? But these guys regenerate really, really well. Okay, they regenerate really well. They are not what we would consider a higher class animal, right? They are very, very simple animals. Again, they've been around about 500 million years, just like everything else that we've talked about thus far, okay? They've been around a long time, but they are much, much more advanced than sponges or cnidarians. But this is something we can't do. We don't do this very well. We can regenerate to a point. If I get a cut on my arm, I can heal that up. It'll seal up, and you know, eventually I might have a scar, but I might not. But we don't do this. So some of the research they've been doing is to figure out like what hormones cause this. What can we use this in humans? Can we get these genes in humans to where, you know, if you lose an arm or a leg, you just eventually grow it back, okay? All right, so, well, it'd be cool if it happened, right? I mean, that would be, medicine would change completely if we could just regenerate lost limbs or even grow like new bodies. When you get old, we just grow you a new body and somehow, you know, transfer your consciousness, your brain into it, right? Okay, let me get rid of this. There wasn't a lot there, right? These guys have an ossified dermal skeleton. Now, you know what one of those words is for sure, right? Skeleton, we know what that is. What was derm? Skin. And ossified, you probably don't know what this is. This is, could be calcareous, we could call it. Calcified, has calcium in it. What part of your body has a lot of calcium in it? Your bones. This is like a type of bone, okay? It is solid, hard pieces. They're not solid, well, the pieces themselves are solid, but they are interconnected. Let's talk real quick. We have two different types of skeletons. We have an endoskeleton, and we have exoskeleton in the animal kingdom. What is an endoskeleton? Where would we find it? On the outside or on the inside of an animal? Inside. Endo, inside. Okay? So an exoskeleton on the outside. Something like different insects or arachnids, you know, the different arthropods have this. What is the advantage of having an exoskeleton? What's it provide?
Protection.
Protection. It's usually armor, right? It's very protective. What's the advantage of having an endoskeleton? Probably more flexibility. It flexes. We can also become larger. Okay, think of the biggest animals that have ever been on the earth. Were they exoskeletal animals? Do blue whales have an armor? No, they're endoskeletons just like we are, okay? So you can get bigger. The movement is different. You can be stronger a lot of times, depending on where your muscles attach to your skeleton. Now these guys are just a little weird. If you don't get anything else from this whole lecture, echinoderms are weird. They are the only animals that have some of these things. They're very simple, yet they're not as simple as some of them. It's like they went up this weird evolutionary trail, and they're the only ones on that whole arm of it, okay? So with these guys, if I draw, this is a starfish laying on its side. We're looking at it from the side. Does that make sense? Okay. Their skeleton is a bunch of little interconnecting, interlocking pieces, okay, that lay right under their skin. It's essentially in their skin, okay? So is that an endoskeleton or is it an exoskeleton? Technically, I see one of you, yes, it is an endo. It is an endo. Why? Because we can't see it by looking at the animal. But what does it act like? It acts like an exoskeleton. It gives it protection for the softer organs inside the animal, okay? These are all separate pieces, okay? They are stuck together with ligaments just like yours are, your bones. They allow a lot of flexibility. When the animal dies, it all locks solid, okay? You guys ever, maybe your grandma has some of these in the bathroom in a little basket, right? They've got little decorative soaps and they've got some dead starfish. They're crunchy, okay? Why? Because of the way their skeleton ossifies and contracts when they're dead. Now, the reason they're called spiny skin is because you can feel these under the skin. Sometimes they don't come necessarily through the skin, but they'll raise the skin and be very rough in some of these animals, very spiny, okay? In something like a sea urchin, it's a different animal. It's kind of like this instead, again from the side. And those are actually, they are attached on the outside. This whole thing is essentially a solid piece but there is skin in between. They're very armored. I mean, the whole thing is like, it's like an eggshell around them. It's covered in skin. And then spikes for protection. Okay? These guys have something that nothing else really has, a water vascular system. We'll go over this quickly, but it is important because if I ask you a question on a test about water vascular system, I'm talking about this phylum. That's about the only way it goes. Water vascular system. What's your vascular system? Do you have a vascular system? Sure we do. What are the components? Not the lungs, although if you have cardiovascular, we had it'd be your veins, your arteries, right? Heart, okay. Well, again, if we had cardiovascular, veins, arteries, capillaries, stuff like that. They don't have blood like we do, okay? They don't have a vascular system quite like we do either. That's all right. This allows for hydrostatic. What is hydro? Hydro and water, it means the same thing, okay? Hydro is water. Allows hydrostatic pressurization. Much like hydraulic pressurization. If I push on a part of like a hydraulic pump, it pushes something else out, right? And vice versa. This helps with feeding, sensing their environment, and locomotion. Locomotion to move, right? Movement, motion. All right. It also helps with gas exchange, or essentially breathing. They don't have lungs. They don't have the gills, but the water vascular system helps for the gas exchange. The CO2 goes out of the animal, the O2 comes in. They still need oxygen like we do, okay? But again, they're all saltwater animals, so this is how they get it. Tube feet. These are the only animals in the known universe that have these. So if I ever ask you a question about tube feet, you need to know I'm talking about echinoderms, okay? Now, what do I mean by tube feet? Well, if you look at a starfish, watch the video, right? Do starfish move their arms to move? Not so much. They can. Some of them can, right? But what do they use? On the bottoms of every one of those arms, they've got little tube feet, okay? So if I look at the arm of a starfish, they've got these little things that look like this that come out. And they've got them all the way down the arm. You got rows of them inside the arms. If we look at the underside of one of the arms, they've got all these, there's more than that, but they kind of do this on the inside part of the arm. These guys are like caterpillars. They move them forward and then they sweep them back, and that propels the whole animal. They move with these little tube feet. They feel their environment with these little tube feet. They grab a hold of food and move it toward their mouth with these little tube feet. Okay? Again, the only animals that we know of anywhere that have tube feet. What allows them to do this? Well, is hydrostatic pressurization. What they do is they bring, if I need to inflate these, I bring water into the animal and force it into these, okay? How many legs do we have? 2, right? How many legs do these have? Hundreds. This is an animal that does not have a brain, yet it can run hundreds of legs all at the same time. We can't do it, right? Our brain is much different than their nervous system that allows them to do this, but we don't really necessarily have the processing power to be able to do this, okay? So again, a very simple creature, in some ways much more advanced, at least in this way, than we are, right? We couldn't run that. We have trouble. I've seen people trip with 2 feet, right? Try to do it with 500 of them. All right, now how does it actually do all this? Can I get rid of this chunk right here? We good? No, not so much. Okay, we'll go there. I need some room. You're going to want to sketch this, or if you're taking your notes on your MacBook, you're going to want to go find a good Google image. Okay, I'm going to draw a starfish. Now, why do we use starfish so much? They're just easier to deal with than some of the other ones. Okay, you're going to draw some stuff on here and label it. Draw a big circle in the middle. Okay, label that a ring canal. What do canals do? Have we ever built canals as humans? Sure we do. What do? They move water. Okay, that's what they do. It's a place for water to run. Ring canal, same thing. It's round. It's a ring. Okay. Draw up the middle of every leg a line. Okay. Label that a radial canal. They radiate off. If we're looking at a radius, right? It's half of that, width of the circle, right? Same thing here. This is part of the radius, radial canal. And then you're going to draw on one of the legs. You don't have to do it on all of them. A bunch of little lines here. Okay, and these are going to be lateral canals. Okay, lateral, they go to the side, they go to each side. So we've got a radial canal down the middle of the leg, lateral canals that serve to be able to pressurize this entire animal. Okay? On the outside of the animal, and I'm going to draw it kind of like this again. All right, so this is all interior here. So far, what we've got, right? Okay. They have a little thing on the outside, on the back of them, which is called a madreporite. Madreporite. That's this part right here. This is the madreporite. Also known as a sieve plate. Now, what does a sieve do? If I have a sieve, you guys played with them as kids, I'm sure. Maybe you took them out in the sand, right? Maybe you ran water through them, okay? What it does is it helps to filter some things out, but it allows water to move in and out of the animal. So how does it pressurize itself? Madreporite. Okay? There's also, it's going to be kind of hard for you to label, but do just a little, essentially a little canal going from the madreporite to the ring canal, and this is called the stone canal. Okay? Now I know this is a little more in-depth than what we talked about with the other animals. Why? There's more to this. This is more complex. When we get into, arthropods, there's going to be, it's going to expand, it's going to explode. There's going to be a lot of different stuff we talk about, right? Same thing when we get into worms, there's going to be some new stuff, and we're going to have to sketch some stuff and kind of realize how it's put together. Okay? They also, if I have a starfish, where's the starfish's mouth? On the bottom. So put your arms out. Okay, so your legs and your arms and your head. Now you've got 5 rays, right? You're a starfish, okay? Your belly button is your mouth, okay? So the mouth is up underneath the animal, okay? We call that the oral surface. Why oral surface? That's where the mouth is. Oral surface in this case, is the bottom of the animal, okay? The aboral surface, aboral is apart from or away from or across from the oral surface. So we would call it what? If we had an aboral surface, if my mouth was right in the middle of my belly button, my back would be my aboral surface. Does that make sense? Okay. These guys have something that is an exciting step forward. They have an anus. Woo! These guys have an anus. None of the animals we've had so far have had an anus. Okay, cnidarians have one opening. They take their food in through that opening, they digest it, and then they got to kick their waste back out through the same opening. Thankfully, they don't have taste buds, right? These guys are able to eat something with their mouth, nom, 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 and they move it out through their anus. Where is their anus? It's on their aboral surface, okay? So it's kind of weird. It's like if your belly button was your mouth, right in the middle of your low back would be your anus. So move it up about 12 inches, okay? But this is a big deal, okay? You're like, oh, seriously, Mark, there's an anus, that's a huge deal? Yes, it is, okay? It allows for better digestion, more complete digestion. These guys don't have, well, we do consider it to be a complete digestive because it starts in one area and it comes out some other hole, okay? That's complete. It doesn't have to puke it back out. There is one caveat to this, though. We said we named 4 different classes, right? With the starfish, we also have the brittle stars. Those are the ones that have the weird arms, right? Brittle stars, put that over here. Brittle stars got the short end of the stick on this. They have no anus. Or brittle stars. They have to eat it with their mouth and they have to put it back out through their mouth. Again, they don't have taste buds like we do, which is probably a good thing. Okay, any questions on this thus far? If I get rid of this, we could? Okay, we're almost done, guys. I got like 3 more points I need to make, and then we're done. Okay. And again, you could study these things we could have almost a full class just on, like a whole semester of just echinoderms. They're interesting. They do weird things, right? Tube feet. Nothing else has that. That weird dermal skeleton. That's very odd. The larvae, the babies that hatch when they do have sexual reproduction, the larvae are bilaterally symmetrical. Now we talked about symmetrical a little bit, like symmetry, right? We talked about with cnidarians, if we look at the top of a jellyfish, can we cut it into equal parts many, many, many times, right? That's a radially symmetrical animal. These guys are bilaterally symmetrical. They're actually shaped really kind of odd, okay? Could I cut this in half, right down the middle, and have 2 sides that are pretty even, assuming that I drew these evenly? Yeah, I know it's ugly. That's not going to be even, but sure. What are humans? What kind of symmetry do we have?
I have a question.
Yeah.
If I go to Robinson and give her stuff back.
Sure. Yeah. You can fill that outside. Humans are also bilaterally symmetrical. Could we cut ourselves straight down the middle and have 2 halves that are the same? Pretty darn close, right? We're not radially symmetrical. We can't make ourselves look like a pizza, right? We couldn't even do it from the top. If I cut here, I've got leg and arm on one side. But if I cut here, now I got half a leg and half an arm, right? It doesn't make any sense. We can't do that, okay? So these guys are bilaterally symmetrical to start with. And then they change a little bit. Okay, when they're adults, they become pentamerously radially symmetrical. Adults, and I did not just make that up, right? That's adults are pentamerously radially symmetrical. What does that mean? If I am a starfish, how many equal pieces can I make if I cut that? We might say, well, you know, you can cut it like this and now it's bilaterally symmetrical, right? Well, sure, but not very well, right? It's actually better if we go, well, I can cut it here, 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 and here. I can cut it into 5 pieces that are all pretty much equal, right? Pentamerous, what is penta? 5. Hexa 6, pentamerous, penta 5. Radially symmetrical, meaning we can cut it, it's essentially kind of like a circle. We look at it the right way, right? That's what we got. All right, so the last little thing. We talked about this with some of the other animals, right? These guys have nerves and muscles. Okay, Cnidaria have nerves and muscles. It allows them to sense their environment and to move, okay? Porifera don't. These guys have this in common with Cnidaria. These guys also have an ability to sense light. Okay, are they eyes? Are they eye spots? They're eye spots, they're called ocelli. It means that, you know, essentially they're cells that are differentiated enough to realize something has moved over the reef and moved over them, okay? So if they see shadows, essentially. And if a shadow comes up over the animal, it knows, maybe I better find some place to hide, or maybe I better get ready to lose an arm, which does not bother them. Some of them will just go ahead and pop arms off. They'll just essentially walk away from one of their arms. They can do this if their arm is very damaged. That arm might not make a whole animal by itself, but they will grow that arm back. It takes a little while, but it's okay. So yeah, sometimes this arm will go ahead and just grab the sand with its little tube feet, and it'll hold tight, and the rest of this animal with its little tube feet walks away from it, and it just tears it right off. Does not bother the animal a bit. Okay? Any questions on these? They're interesting, they're weird, they do things that other animals don't do, so make sure you know those things, right? I'm gonna go ahead and stop the recording. Thanks for watching, hope you learned something. Hope you have a new understanding of these animals anyway, and hopefully new appreciation for them.